Womp womp womp. The Mercury take a big L here in the valley, but I'm gonna try to find something optimistic to talk about today here on the PHNX Mercury podcast. Welcome back to the PHNX Mercury podcast. I'm your host, Erika. Today we will be joined by my PG1, QB1, on and off the court, in and out of the studio, on and off the court tonight, especially. Stephen Pridgeon here shortly. Shout out to Kevin Thomas, who's behind the Mac, throwing the X's and O's, hitting the buttons today. And there are a lot of buttons to be hit. As you can see on the screen, the Mercury take the L to the Seattle Storm, 89-77. I start this podcast off by just saying that the Mercury are exhausted, and for extremely good reason. We're going to get into it, but 9 games in 18 days, and if you look ahead, the Mercury only have 1 game over the next 6 days, which, I mean, just... Nate Tibbetts said it best pregame. He's no mathematician, but that just seems like the math isn't mathing. And so when you look at the standings, you know, there are some teams that had only played 6 games today. The Mercury are on their 10th. And so, yeah, the world's tiniest violin is definitely playing for the Mercury right now, I'm sure. But it definitely stings when the Mercury are taking these losses that are impartial to because they're shorthanded versus these really, really good teams. And let's not front about the Seattle Storm. I know that the Mercury fans might be a little jaded because in the first matchup versus the Seattle Storm, the Mercury practically dog walked them. But the Seattle Storm are a no joke, W caliber team. They're going to be a hell in the playoffs. So let's just say it how it is. And so yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that the Seattle Storm are going to be just fine and have proven so in their games after that big season opener L to the Phoenix Mercury. So, yeah, Kevin, let's just go ahead and get into the by the numbers real quick. Here we go. As you can see, presented by Desert Financial Credit Union. Shout out to them. The field goal percentages are not that far off. Seattle Storm with 48.5%. Phoenix Mercury with the 43.9%. 3-point percentages are where it gets a little hairy, though, as the Phoenix Mercury couldn't seem to, do what they've been doing in the last couple games, and they were only shooting 32%. The Seattle Storm could not miss tonight, so it seemed, shooting 54.5% from 3, and then the turnovers also killed the Mercury. 14 turnovers for them, 11 for the Storm. Last season we complained about the rebounding, but they only, were lessened by 2 on the rebounding. It was the fouls, though. And yeah, the Mercury only had 18 fouls and the Storm had 15. So it's not that far different. But if you watched the game, the fouls were not being called evenly, and that kind of showed in the technical foul that was picked up in the fourth quarter by Nate Tibbetts. Shout out to Girl Dad, okay? Let's just give a big shout to my guy himself, Nate Tibbetts, the head coach of this Phoenix Mercury team, for taking one for the team because, I love to complain about officiating. Steven knows it. Kevin knows it. Anyone that's ever talked to me about sports for longer than 5 minutes knows that I will complain about official. But Nate Tibbetts was rightfully complaining, and it wasn't a sight for sore eyes. I want to say there were a couple different offensive fouls on Satou Sabally that just shouldn't have been called, and then there was a foul on Musa that was just egregious in my opinion. Musa didn't even touch her. And I'm going to talk about the way that Musa has played her best game in a Mercury jersey tonight later in this game. But the officiating tonight was just awful. And in the last game that the Mercury played, they started out the game, starting over the game after 24 seconds. And then, having multiple different clock issues. So to say that I'm really fed the frick up with officiating in the WNBA right now is kind of an understatement. But nonetheless, it was a good game. The Mercury never, actually, they did lead. I was going to say they never led, but I would be a liar. They did hold the lead for just a brief moment, because every time it seemed that they could get some momentum, it was shot right out from under them. Tanika in the comments said he didn't do enough complaining to suit me. And honestly, Nate, I feel like Nate does a really good job of balancing like when he should complain and when he shouldn't. And I feel like, it was, I won't call them the worst I've ever seen, considering some of the things I've seen in the Pac-12. I'm looking at you in particular with your terrible officials. Melissa, you know who I'm talking about. It's a you. But yeah, Thomas, it was great meeting you in the game today. Actually, I'm going to use this as a chance to plug our diehards real quick. PHNX Mercury has the best freaking diehards in all of PHNX land. I know the hockey group is a really special group. I know the D-backs has a lot of crossover with the Mercury especially, but the Mercury group is just, I was reading the Discord earlier and they're giving lore on backstories that other fans might not know, and they're that group. And so if you're not a PHNX diehard, you should click the first link in the description right now, become a PHNX diehard, and you get this cool membership card. You get to meet up with us every game, and we're pretty cool. And then you can be in the Discord lounge with all of our beloved diehards who ask really great questions and then get even better answers from either myself and my great co-host Stephen or the other diehards. So yeah, it's a great group of people. So huge shouts to you, Thomas. It was great meeting you, and sorry to the other diehards who I didn't get to meet today. Because we were doing this post-game show. Kevin, let's fly to our X factor of the game. Satou Sabally, 22 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. The 22 points seems crazy. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I lied in our headline. We should probably fix that. That's crazy. That's really funny. But yeah, Satou Sabally, it was a great game from her tonight, but in the last 5 games that Alyssa Thomas has been out, there has been a rookie or a bench player that has really, really, really stepped up. And tonight that just didn't happen. Lexi Held played great, 14 points, 4 steals, I want to say. No, 2 steals. But 3 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, it was a good game from Lexi Held, but it was not anything that could put the Mercury on her back to win the game. So, yeah, Satou Sabally is our X factor of the game, but it was definitely a tough showing I can't even say tough showing, because it's not even that it was a bad game. It was just they're playing shorthanded and they're playing exhausted, as we'll get to later in this episode. I don't want to talk too much about our clips that we have coming, but Sean Sellers has a great point in the chat. Satou Sabally did get a new player edition shoe today. The Unicorn edition kicks are fire. They are fire. They're pink. They've got Satou's signature on the sole. They're really fly. I'm not gonna lie. And so yeah, those I won't say are top 3 player edition shoes for me, because Chelsea Gray and Allie Quigley's shoes do exist, unfortunately, and Kalia Copper's. How can I forget? But yeah, those are pretty sick shoes of Satou Sabally's. Yeah, June, you're correct. They were outplayed. I won't say it's excuses, but again, if you look at the rest of the scheduling in the WNBA, and we'll get to what Satou Sabally had to say about the scheduling, but it's not excuses. That's kind of the way the game played out. The Seattle Storm had control of this game from start to end. And as I said earlier, it felt like they could not miss from 3. And Skylar Diggins knew it. I saw a diehard chat earlier today that said, Skylar is becoming a top 10 Valley villain, and that is no lie. She knows it, and every time she comes to the Valley, she very much shows out, or at least very much attempts to show out, and tonight is no exception to that rule. She really showed her rear end, and it showed in her 3 in Monique McConaughey's face, and it was, yeah, Seattle Storm played fantastic. Gabby Williams, 21 points. Skylar Diggins, 26. Neko Gumake, 13. It was a very balanced game from them. I hope Lee Rue finds a home maybe in the Phoenix Mercury jersey. It was her first game since requesting a trade, so that's an interesting tidbit on the Storm front.
Interesting thing with Gabby Williams, though, real quick. She had 18 points at the half and finished with 21.
Dang. Well, I will say that the third quarter, the Mercury held the Seattle Storm to 2 points in the first 5 minutes of the game, or in the first 5 minutes of the quarter. But then after that, it just spiraled out of control, and it goes back to them being freaking exhausted. They have not practiced in over 10 days, have not had a practice, and they are a professional basketball team. And so I think we have to contextualize this loss a little bit. I said to Stephen yesterday, this team is gonna get tired, eventually. The rookies who have never played this level of basketball before, this WNBA style for this extended period of time, eventually it's gonna get to them and they're gonna get exhausted. And when you're playing without the likes of Alyssa Thomas and Natasha Mack and Kalia Copper, like, we're not talking about missing, I don't know. If we were missing Haley Jones and I was making the same excuse, I would be punching my own screen. I would be telling myself, get a new podcast, girl. Like, this clearly isn't your forte. But we're missing Kalia Copper and Alyssa Thomas, who, if you know anything about this team, is 2 of the big 3. And when the Phoenix Mercury's season first started, everyone was talking about, the lack of depth. And now that tonight, the lack of depth was kind of the issue, I just think that, that's exactly what happened, and the Mercury lost the game. So, nonetheless, Big Zaya Wade, Durantula, I'm gonna need you to. I'm not sure you're in the right chat, so I'm just not sure about that. I don't know. Maybe you're telling me something new information here, but shout out to you guys all in the chat. June, Thomas, whoever user is. I feel like user could be a blocked person or something, and I'm not sure who that is, but nonetheless, Sean Sellers. I know Lindsay's watching from wherever she's getting her post game meal. Shout out to all of you guys in the chat box for being here on this fine Saturday evening. 2 back-to-back shows from us, so I know it's a lot of work by you guys as well. Kevin, you did watch this loss with us tonight. It was tough.
It was.
What stood out to you from everybody else besides Satou tonight?
We're going to get to this in one word burn later, but just like how badly AT is missed and how badly Kalia Copper is missed, you don't have the depth to really play a full W season without, you're talking about 2 of your big 3, and with Natasha Mack out, you're talking about 3 of your starting 5. So, overall, you need your troops back to go to war in the WNBA.
Yeah, and I think that, with Mack and Thomas, or Alyssa Thomas, I think it's tough because when you pulled up to the game tonight, you saw how tall the Seattle Storm are. They have multiple players that are over 6'5", and then, their guards are massive. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Gabby Williams in person, but the girl is just long, okay? And so it's going to be a tough matchup for them anytime, but when you're without your primary interior defenders, it makes it all the much more difficult. So, yeah, it was a tough game for the Mercury. They got lost defensively multiple times, which I think has been a strong suit for the Mercury, especially at home. Even though Alyssa Thomas hasn't played in the last 5 or 6 games. I can't be too certain on that. So don't hold me to that. But 5 or 6. The Mercury have been really good defensively at home, but tonight they really, really struggled on the defensive rotations, and it shows in the score, allowing 89 points, and it shows in what I just talked about, how they kept the Storm to only 5 points in the first 5 minutes of the third quarter, and then suddenly the Storm just start going off and hitting threes like it's going out of style. So the Mercury are paying the price for being shorthanded, but it looks like Stephen's having some technical difficulties getting into their chat. So without further ado, Kevin, do you have the videos ready of them talking about the scheduling issues, though? Nate Tibbetts.
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and roll out Nate Tibbetts talking about the schedule problem.
Yeah, I think everybody needs it, the players especially. It's been a grind, and I don't think people understand, when they go through stretches like this, teams and with the injuries, and a lot of our players have been asked to do more because of people being out, and so again, I've been extremely proud of how hard we've played. It's not always perfect, but our effort is pretty damn good.
So yeah, Nate Tibbetts isn't one to make excuses. He never has been for this team. If you watched them last year, they took a lot of tough losses at home, and he never was one to kind of make excuses for the squad. And so it was really interesting, definitely, to hear him talk about, even pregame, how much this team is in desire of a break. But it does look like we were able to fix the technical difficulties and get the other half of this pod in here. So I'm hoping, if that's the case, Stephen. Ayo, I know the vibes aren't so hot right now, but I'm always trying to be the upper on the squad. So how's it going there?
No different than the Mercury. We got a little adversity that we got hit with in an unexpected fashion, but guess what we did? We here.
At least one squad persevered tonight.
Well, I would say, considering they're still a couple games above 500, with everything that they've had going on, from the scheduling frenzy to the inopportune injuries that have come out, they're still in very good standing. So I would like to think us and the Mercury have a few things in common as far as being perseverant in multiple respects.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to make excuses for them or anything like that, but it definitely has been a little bit of an unfair, playing field with the scheduling for this team this go around. Their opponents haven't necessarily been the top of the top leaderboard, in terms of the standings, but that's partially because they haven't played that many games either. And so, we already played the clip of Nate talking about it, but I know Satou had a lot to say about that as well. So if we can go ahead and get that plan now.
I think every single team in this league is really, really good. So it really doesn't matter who we play against. But like I said, 9 games in 18 days. How much can you recover? How fast can you recover? Obviously, we have a great staff, and I trust in that. But in previous years, it did look different for me, and I know it's not like that across the whole league. So even just making sure that all teams supply the necessary recovery tools, treat professionals as professionals, but also the league being able to work together with players and not just throw them out there. Even in the playoff run, it's going to be a lot of games, but just taking care of their product as well. Yeah, I think this is a conversation that could also be important for the next CBA. Kathy added a lot of games, and us as players, recovery is so important. We put our bodies on the line every single time. We had 9 games in 18 days. That's not really responsible for a commissioner. I think other teams have 3 back-to-back. So it's just a lot of things that we could clean up in terms of scheduling, but we persevered, and we showed that we can do it. It's just something that obviously along the way over the course of a long season, that's really hard to do.
Well, and Nate talked about it pregame as well, but it has been an unfair advantage for the Mercury right now, and or disadvantage, I guess I should say, for the Mercury, where they're playing these games not back to back, but every other day seemingly. Even me, I feel like I'm driving to Phoenix 4 times a week to come watch the Mercury play basketball. And so, it does sting a little bit, I guess, for the Mercury fans.
Yeah, it's definitely feels like the planning wasn't where it needed to be in terms of considering all existing parties regarding the decision to expand the schedule, and obviously the volume of frequency of games for each respective team as well. Doesn't feel like the decision was comprehensive, and I think that's one of the biggest things to kind of take away from everything that Satou said. Doesn't feel like the CBA was as involved, if involved at all, with that ultimate decision. And yeah, I think she makes multiple great points considering if you want the best product on the court, it's awesome to have more games, but the scheduling and the logistics within the scheduling have to be to a specific point, honestly, to a T, because if it's not, then you're going to see more injuries compile. The general basketball product, because of fatigue, in addition to injuries, is going to take steps back. And that's not what you want. You want to take off. You want to have that trajectory, that ability to kind of break the stratosphere and just continue to ascend. But you don't want to spend all of your money on the gas that it's going to take to get up there, because what about when you get there? Are you going to keep going up? Or are you going to start to plateau and ultimately kind of go back down? It's all about ascending, and it doesn't feel like they had the escape velocity that they were maybe expecting, largely because all existing parties weren't involved with the ultimate decision that was made. And I think we're seeing some of the ramifications from it. And I think that Satou has more than a billion reasons why she should feel the way she feels. And I could put some money on it that she's not the only player in the actual WNBPA, but also just generally as a player that feels the same things that she's feeling at this moment in time.
Well, and it was kind of a mic drop moment from Satou that we probably haven't really heard from her this season, where it's like, this is definitely unfair. And she wanted to put her money on it because, I've seen the jokes already all over Twitter about paying her fine for her to get her out of it for saying that. And it goes to show you, like, it being unfair isn't just for us. Everyone exterior of the Phoenix Mercury sees it as well, and it's not just the Phoenix Mercury's team that has this going on. And playing the bottom 6 teams doesn't negate this. Yeah, the Mercury have had some great comeback wins, but this being sustainable with 9 players the answer is it's not.
Yeah, and I think Satou pretty much said as much when she mentioned that she thinks that every team in the league is good. And there's obviously different varying levels of that, but it's not specific to the Phoenix Mercury. It's something that's shared across the entire league, to where teams that maybe haven't had the same stretch that they've just got done going through the first quarter of the regular season will certainly have that going forward, whether it be the second quarter or post All-Star break. And it's not just for one specific team. I think was intentional about her emphasizing that this is a league-wide thing, and that she feels like if they bring that up to par, everything else can kind of reap the benefits from playing more games and being able to generate more attention. But you can't do that when you're having missteps in your process, the likes of the scheduling and the logistics and that part of things.
Well, and I guess let's just talk about it. The injuries, and Nate Tibbetts talked about the possibility of them returning, but even still, their schedule is a lot lighter over the next 3 weeks than it has been over the last 2.5. So it's kind of a laughable situation.
I mean, that's definitely one way to put it. Having so many games crunched into a 2.5 week stretch, and then you have a 3 week stretch where it's as light as it's felt since training camp. I feel like there's opportunity to be much, much better with the scheduling on things like that in particular. And I think the Mercury are going to ultimately see players come back, to your point, as far as health and being able to be back more full. I do think we see this team healthy by the All-Star break. And that's, knock on wood, assuming no other injuries surface as they start to get players back. So this is not an addition by subtraction type of scenario. But I think the way that the schedule is set up, the timetables we were given as far as the injuries that we've seen from from AT and Mack and obviously Kalia as well. I'll have them returning hopefully sometime within the next 2 weeks, but I would imagine more than likely before the All-Star break at the absolute latest.
Well, and let's hear from Nate Tibbetts on when the possibility of these people returning and just him on clarifying a little bit of these injuries.
Yeah, I think everybody needs. Yeah, I mean, I think just having healthy bodies, adding all WNBA players is always a good thing. I don't know, when it's going to happen, if it's Wednesday or Monday or the following Wednesday, but they're getting closer. I think you guys have seen that in the facility the last 3 or 4 days. If you would have asked some of them tonight, they might have felt like they were ready to go tonight. But, we got to be smart. It's a long season. And, yeah, we'll see. I think just when you add good players to, a group that's already playing well, it hopefully kind of puts people back in their original roles.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this team with the strength of Kalia Copper. We could talk about Natasha Mack and Alyssa Thomas too, but Kalia Copper is going to be back soon, folks. And 1 year ago today, she hit the game winner versus the Minnesota Lynx in the PHX Arena. And I just feel like people are forgetting the pieces that are sitting on the bench over there for the Mercury right now.
I don't think anybody wants to see this team healthy and whole more than Nate Tibbetts. The strings he's had to pull, the creativity he's had to work with, the buy-in that he's been able to kind of generate as an opportunity stemming from multiple high-volume minute getters for his team just not being available. It's been awesome. It's been a blessing in disguise because I feel like it's expedited the learning process of them figuring out how certain players can be used, how much usage you can get out of certain players, and the unique ways in which those players can also be used, also across lineup combinations and things like that. So all of that information gathering has seen an expedited kind of ×2 multiplier to it. And all of that is great, but there's also an integration point that's going to have to take place at some point where you're getting all of these players involved while also having Mack and also having Copper available. So I think everybody's kind of rearing to go essentially for the Mercury right now. Obviously, it's looming. It's going to happen at some point in the near future. Just can't stamp a specific date to it. But I think one thing that will certainly be valued and appreciated by them, which kind of is a recurring theme so far, is the fact that they'll actually have off days to just kind of rest and maybe detach from the game just even the slightest bit because they weren't afforded opportunities to do that over the last 2.5 to 3 weeks. I think these days offer an ability to not just rest and recover, but to also practice and watch film and be able to correct mistakes that took place over the course of tonight's game in particular. I think it's going to do them a solid bit of good going into Wednesday's game and ultimately their game over the weekend going into next week too.
Well, we're going to get Stephen's take on the loss and also apparently celebrate Stephen's birthday after this quick break here on the PHNX Mercury podcast. Stephen looked confused, but I know the Mountain America Credit Union is down to help us celebrate Stephen's birthday. With the Mile Style Lifestyle, they have a I didn't have this pulled up, you guys. That's my bad. But My Style Lifestyle, they have more than 100 branches all over the West to help out their more than 1 million members. They can help you get your savings account right, and I can't get into my account. That's super cool. Oh man, with your one moment, please, everyone. It's coming right now.
They have 100 branches throughout the West, Erika, and you can get 2 times the points on rewards credit cards through July 31st. Use your Mountain America Rewards credit card and watch the points pile up. Yeah, loans on approved credit only. Offer can change or be withdrawn at any time. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply.
Thank you, Steve. Kevin just saved the day. Do you see how frazzled I am, people? I'm literally sweating over here. Circle K though. Circle K is gonna help me get home. I'm gonna need some snacks, a drink. Yeah, I have one of those, Chris, next to me, thanks to our good friends over at Circle K. The Inner Circle Rewards program. I'm looking a little frazzled right now, and that's because I forgot my gas card at home, so I just get my little 5-cent Inner Circle Rewards member reward tonight on my way home. But that's okay. It's fine. You can get it too, just like me. If you download their Inner Circle Rewards program app, you just have to put in your email and address and phone number. Oh my goodness. And you can become an Inner Circle Rewards member just like me and Kevin. You can scan your little card at the fuel pump, get your 25 cents off your first 5 fuel ups, and then 3 cents a gallon off every fill up after that. 5 cents a gallon. You can work your way up to that if you get enough gas there. It's honestly really easy. You just have to download the app, put in your phone number and your email address, and you become a member. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. Oh my God, Stephen, thank God you're back. I don't know if you just watched that. Please. Oh my God.
It's all good. It's all good. That's what the team is here for. We good.
See, this is why I need my guy in here. I was stressing. Like, my face is bright red. I couldn't get my website to work. I went to go to the ad break, and then boom, I didn't have it up. I'm just a poop show right now. It's okay, though, because Melissa got us right with this super chat right here. $4.99. Happy Goat Day Central Time. Happy birthday, SPG. Also, Erika with the slick back, clean girl hair. I see you. Thank you for that, because it's scary to wear it on camera. I look like an egghead, but that's okay. Stephen, you weren't gonna tell me tomorrow's your freaking birthday, bro?
I mean, I would have told you afterwards. I wasn't gonna say it on air, but of course, Melissa is very, very slick with her ways, and she found a way to slip it into the chat. So appreciate you, Melissa. Shout out to the homies in Chicago as well for tapping in on the post game show for us, and I appreciate the early birthday our time, but on time birthday in Chicago time. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all.
Well, we couldn't do the show without Stephen. Y'all know I bring the vibes, but I literally am going to have to sit down with Stephen. I was just telling Kevin pre-show, like, I need a little lesson from Stephen on how he looks at stats so that I can just bring a little Stephen layer to the way I look at stats. You know, I just need a little bit of his help, you know? Whew. But yeah, okay. I think I've calmed down a little bit after that crap show that I just called an ad break. What a mess, but that's okay. Nonetheless, I looked just like the Mercury looked tonight versus the Seattle Storm. A little bit lost at times. At least how I felt.
I think that's a good transition point. Did we speak on their defense yet today?
That's what I was waiting on you for.
There you go. I'll go ahead and take it. If we can get the clip of Nate speaking to their pick and roll defense in particular, we'll kind of jump to that, and then we'll hop back in after the clip is done.
We had some doubt in pick and roll. I think it's probably been one of the best things we've done defensively. I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know if it's the newness. Musa was in a bunch of it. Again, she's trying. We just haven't had a ton of time to practice it with her. And then you've got a couple of lead guards that got comfortable in the first half. I think Gabby had 18 in the first half, and we did a good job on her. And then Skylar took over down the stretch. That's what great players do. And we need to be better in pick and rolls.
Yeah, so Phoenix came into tonight's game. They were by far the best pick and roll defense in the league. And they've honestly taken pick and rolls whenever teams like to get into that. And they've used it as an opportunity to really dictate to their opponents. So not always sending blitzes. They really haven't sent any double teams all season. But they've been really good with their pressure and their aggression and their ability to impact the ball and kind of send the offense off rhythm based off of the ways in which the defense is connected in that particular context. And obviously involved in a ton of that is typically Alyssa Thomas. So you felt a lot of her not being around for the team kind of hit them in ways in which they really haven't seen all season long, quite honestly. And I think that second half in particular, A lot of the opportunities that Skylar was able to kind of get scoring opportunities in came from them having slippage in ways that they're just not used to having. Very much an anomaly type of defensive performance from the Mercury tonight. I don't imagine it's going to be an issue that we see from them going forward. I think this is like credit to Seattle for the tough shot taking and making that they were able to get to. But I also feel like some of that also came in tandem with this being the 9th game in 18 days and against a withered team that doesn't have as many options as they typically would have. I feel like it was kind of a perfect time and a kind of marrying of a strength of Seattle versus a weakness from the Mercury in tonight's game. And ultimately, it kind of cost them because needless to say, Skylar was at the top of their scouting report. You want to take things away from her as much as you possibly can. And we just saw some things that honestly are uncharacteristic from their defense in terms of discipline with fouls at times, lapses in coverage. Skylar knocked down 5 threes, and most of that came in the second half. At some point, you don't necessarily want to be going under screens and kind of conceding the shots that she wants to take in a context of play that she's super comfortable with. So, like I said, nothing alarming. It very much feels like an anomaly type of scenario, but something that certainly cost them tonight was their defense, particularly in pick and roll.
Well, in the first matchup against the Storm, it felt like an anomaly from the Storm in their shooting. And now this time it kind of felt like an anomaly from the Mercury in their entire gameplay in general. There were some smoked things that probably should have gone in the basket for the Mercury, and then obviously the defensive end just didn't work out in the way that it normally would have. So to your point, I do think that this was a one-off performance from them, and we won't see this in 4.5 days when they have to play the Dallas Wings next on Wednesday.
Yeah, I firmly expect for this team to be back to that space as a top 2 style of defense going into Wednesday's game, and probably going forward from there. Might be some honk Mack truck action within the next 2 games. That's going to be something that certainly helps with everything that they're looking to do defensively, as well as the energy, as well as the front court depth. And I think the general observation for me is that help is on the way.
Listen, if we can get Natasha Mack back on this team, and listen, I want Mack, I want Ka back, I want AT back as bad as the next guy, but Mack, the good friend of the show, the honking, the good vibe she just brings to the dang court, it can't be matched by anyone else, and so I need it like I need freaking air.
Yeah, and I think the team is in need of it. I'm not gonna say they're desperate for it because they've gotten it from multiple pieces. Lexi Held being someone that stepped up in each of the last 3 games, scoring in double figures, and also doing a great job with activity and energy being infused on the defensive end. Murjanatu Musa brought it in spades today, going up against the likes of Lee Yuru, as well as having some moments with Neka Gumake, as well as Ezzy Magbagor. She just did a great job just finding ways to kind of bring energy to kind of bridge the gap for them across lineups, especially when Satou was attempting to get a little bit of rest before having to check back in. So they've been getting it from multiple other pieces, but I think them starting to get those same type of energy dynamics from the players that they're valuing a little bit more, and to put those players back into their typical roles like Nate just got done speaking to, I think it's going to help the role players, and it's also going to just help the general ecosystem and for them to sustain in the style of play that they want to get to.
Now, I want to get into our words. Our one word slay. It would be a one word slay, but unfortunately today it's not very slay. I would dare to say one word burns though. Since usually this is hot, but I'm gonna go through my word. It's murky. Steven's word tired. Kevin's word. Kevin even gets a word on this show. Impatient. Steven, you want to go first with tired?
Yeah, I think a lot of the slippage that we saw, again, most of it certainly uncharacteristic based off of what they showed in the prior handful of games. I think it just kind of stems from them being tired. And it's okay to admit that you're tired, especially when you're playing in a stretch of games that historically the W hasn't really ever even seen. And I think you put that again, like I mentioned when I first hopped on, you put that in tandem with this team also just not having bodies in addition to playing the volume and succession of games that they played, as well as the traveling involved with all of that too. that doesn't leave much of any time to actually rest if you're, playing the plane, then you land, and then you got practice, so you got to do shoot around, and then you got to play another game in the next day or so. It's just been back to back to back. The hits have been continuing to come for them, and it feels like they were just generally tired in multiple aspects of their gameplay tonight.
Kevin, impatient?
I need AT Cot and Mack Truck back, man. I'm getting impatient. That's what my word was. And that's why I feel that way.
You know what? Go nuts, Kevin. Murky. It was ugly, stinky. It was just not what you wanted to see as a Mercury fan. It at times felt like the pendulum's finally gonna swing. I was supposed to leave after the third quarter to come back here to get ready for the post-game show, but Stephen was like, Erika, you don't have to leave yet. You got a ton of time. And I was like, Mercury are only down by 5. They're gonna start to take the lead, man. I just know it's coming, and I'm gonna get the perfect shot of the Monique Makani 3 that's gonna take them over the lead, and it just never came, and they could never get the momentum back, and it was stinky and smelly, and if you looked in the water, it was ugly and gray, and I didn't really like it. So I do hope the tide starts to turn back for this team. Not that the tide has really turned to super poorly. All year last year, we were talking about battling 500, and this team hasn't once done that. So I feel still elated about the current state of the Phoenix Mercury.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the team. I think that rest, in addition to time to practice, in addition to getting some of their mainstays back, is gonna all kind of help incrementally, and honestly, all three kind of coming in waves. As you see, Mack and Copper, and also obviously Alyssa Thomas return to the floor, it's gonna help them in multiple capacities. Honestly, in ways that we just literally haven't seen quite yet, because they just all haven't been on the court and in the rotation together outside of the first preseason game. So definitely understand where Kevin is coming from. I think a lot of fans share that same sentiment of patient, but also impatient, because we're so far into the season and you just haven't seen the full team together. It's like when your parents get Christmas gifts early, and you got to sit there and look at them every time you come in and out the living room for like 7 or 8 days straight. And it's like, man, I know what that looks like, but I just can't actually put my finger on what it is until I can actually, rip the packaging off of it and kind of play with it and assess it. I feel like that's what a lot of Mercury fans are going through right now. It's certainly been a tease in multiple respects, but I think the wave is coming in due time, and I think the team is eager and, like I said, chomping at the bit to really see what their ceiling is once they get all of their pieces together.
And I wanted to talk about Musa before we got out of here, because I feel like this was probably Musa's best game in a Mercury jersey. I feel like it was she looked really confident out there, actually, and in a time where maybe she hasn't been playing to the level that she knows she can play. And so I think it was, it's like I said at the beginning of this pod, I'm going to find something to be optimistic about. And so, we've had surges from Monique, we've had surges from Lexi, we've had surges from Kit, and so now I'm still optimistic about the fact that Musa played pretty well in this game versus the Storm, especially considering the matchup and size component of this whole thing I talked about in the earlier part of the episode. But I mean, they're playing against players that are 6'7". When you're playing the Seattle Storm, you're playing 6'5", 6'7" players on the inside. The whole entire game you're battling. And Musa is playing on the interior most of the game. So I was pretty impressed with what I was seeing from Musa tonight.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, everything that we're speaking to with the Mercury, you have to credit the Storm for everything that they did, because I know I mentioned a lot of the factors in play for the Mercury in tonight's game, but this is the exact type of game that the Storm want to put onto their opponents, and that's to make things super muddy and to drag their opponents into the deep water. And what I mean by muddy is not playing a game in terms of for an opponent on script. In addition to that, what I mean by taking them into deep water is forcing teams to play in the last 5 seconds of the shot clock if they're not turning the ball over through that first portion of offensive possession. So look at that third quarter in particular, and I think we saw a whole lot of what the Seattle Storm like to do to their opponents. The game flow was super muddy, and that ultimately led to them playing a lot in transition and in fast break opportunities. And you also saw the Phoenix Mercury in an uncharacteristic fashion, taking a ton of shots in the last 5 to 6 seconds of the shot clock, to where it's not a scripted shot, it's not a set shot. You just know you got to put something up on the board because the shot clock is about to expire. And that's ultimately a turnover because of the way in which it allows for an opponent to play into transition. So we saw a lot of those type of instances uncharacteristically taking place for the Mercury. That being said, after crediting the Seattle Storm for everything that they did with their defense that led to their offense, Murjanatu Musa, we tried to give a nice preview of the type of player that she is. And I think that some people were kind of put off by her first handful of minutes because they weren't the most comfortable for her. She's in a brand new country, yet alone on a brand new team with a bunch of brand new people and playing a brand new style of play as well, in addition to all of that. So a ton of newness, some grace has to be extended to her for that as she continues to learn, she continues to grow on the WNBA stage. But I feel like we saw the slightest bit of what she ultimately will be for this team in tonight's game. And that's a player that can take on bigger matchups like either of the four front court pieces for the Seattle Storm. All like you said, Erika, at 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", with almost 6'7", 6'8" wingspans in addition to all of that and all the athleticism and skill and versatility that you could think of. And she's just out there doing her work early, pushing them off their spots, getting to offensive rebounding positioning, and creating second chance opportunities for the Mercury on offense, while also on the defensive end being able to switch, also being able to, like I said, do her work early, push them off of their spots in the post, and then do a good job contesting without fouling. She understands how to have impact as a smaller player, and it just takes an expedited thinking process, seeing things a little bit earlier to react before your opponent can put you in compromise and put you in a position where you're disadvantageous. And she does a great job of just mitigating those scenarios. And I feel like today, again, was just a blueprint for how she can have impact with this team. She does it in a way that's unique from Haley Jones, but Haley Jones is another player that's going to help to do that. And a lot of that is going to be those two kind of coming in to replace Satou Sabally or Alyssa Thomas once the team is whole. And if you're seeing two players that can hold up in the ways in which they've both shown over the last 3 games, now you start to see where the depth for the Phoenix Mercury can truly be a weapon for them going forward, and why they're kind of being lauded as a team that's going to be punching up into that as close to the top 2 teams in the league as you could possibly be going into the playoffs.
Well, and I can see a world in which the Mercury truly play 12 players come playoff time. And I don't think that there's a whole lot of teams that have that same sentence that could come out of their mouth. As much as I love Jalen Sherrod, I don't foresee that she's going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs for the New York Liberty, right? I think we can all probably agree on that. And so I think the Phoenix Mercury are going to be a real, as Crispy in the comments be saying, a real problem once the Mercury is whole.
Yeah, I think I don't know if they can get to 12 just because minutes are going to go up for the main pieces, and then it's going to be about how can you find minutes for other players. So I think it'll be hard for Nate to get to 12, but your overarching point is very on point. And that's that Nate has options to toggle through, whether it be for matchups, whether it be for lineups, whether it be for a certain specific type of scheme. He can go with a big in terms of a player like Kalani Brown, a matchup with other players in playoffs, or he can go with someone like Musa or even Haley Jones in the secondary lineups and play the more switching and more activity styles of defense and play into a little bit more skill and perimeter-oriented play on offense as well. So the options part is going to be something that certainly helps them going forward. And I think that I don't want to talk about the playoffs too early because we're so far away from there. But I do think that the way that this roster is set up,
it's a quarter of the way there.
Options and decisions to make from that.
The Mercury is almost a quarter of the way to the playoffs. It just feels like it's basically tomorrow. The All-Star break is in 12 hours and then playoffs tomorrow.
I mean, if everybody keeps playing 9 games in 18 days, they definitely get there a whole lot quicker than what I'm talking about for sure.
Before you got on the pod, we talked about Satou Sabally being the X factor of the game, but I wanted to get your perspective on her play tonight. The 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and then but also 4 turnovers as well. It wasn't her most solid game in a Mercury jersey, but I don't think her worst either. I think we could all probably agree that she's not playing her best basketball here yet. But I think, to your earlier points, like her usage being what it is right now, probably is not benefiting her too terribly much. And so I look forward to brighter days where Satou Sabally can be used in the clutch a little bit better, and she won't be so exhausted from pouring it all in the prior 30 minutes that she's had to play.
Yeah, that's a solid bit of it for Satou. Teams have been very comfortable defending her in ways in which they just simply won't be able to when this team is healthy and whole. And I think that presented opportunities for her to learn about her teammates, to build that trust with them. It's also presented Nate and company with challenges and opportunities to put her in positions and learn more about her game within their team context off of the principles that he's established and things of that nature. So it's been just a lot of learning going on with all of the injuries that have taken place and how they've had to shift the style of play that they've kind of been playing to of late. There's been a ton of information gathering, and the fact that I think they've effectively and productively learned a lot about the usage of Satou and the pockets of the court that she likes to operate from, and how she can also be complementary to the three-point shooting style of play that they want to get to from the others on their team. I think it's all just kind of adding up, and I think that with the film as well as the in-game reps that they've been able to compile the last 4 games or 5 games, they're going to be able to implement the process or the things they've learned to their process once the team is healthy. And I think that that's going to be something that allows for them to navigate the moments where Alyssa Thomas isn't on the court in ways that are more effective and more productive than they were prior to AT getting hurt 5 games ago. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from all of it. Like, Satou hasn't been her best self over the last 5 games, but I feel like she's done as much as she possibly could and could be asked for, considering all of the adversity that they've been working up against.
Lexi Held is Rookie of the Week still, right?
I mean, Kiki has a lot to say about that in particular. That being said, I do think that Lexi is the Rookie of the Week. 3 double-digit scoring efforts in a row, multiple 2 or more 3-point make type of games, the impact that she's had for the team on defense, the context of her having to step up in her role because her team just simply hasn't had the bodies that they anticipate having once they get closer to the finish line of the regular season. Lexi's done a whole lot more than what she would be expected, and a whole lot more than a role that she was brought into this team to play would have for her as well. So I think that context matters when you're talking about Rookie of the Week. She's definitely been that.
Well, I saw some people talking about like how she shouldn't be Rookie of the Week because the context of her being an older undrafted player, and I'm like, that I feel like means more. What are you people talking about?
Is this her first season in the WNBA or not? And I think that's where that's the rebuttal to that question, and that's kind of where it ends. A rookie in a literal sense is someone who's having their very first season or spending their very first moments in a new situation. That's quite literally what it is for her. And I think she's earned the opportunity and the right to being named Rookie of the Week for this past week and her efforts within it all.
Are there any other observations from tonight's game that you feel like we need to get out there before I ask you about the footwork that I guess the Suns chat is bringing in here?
The footwork question is not getting answered because no. But I will say I will continue to speak to the shooting and the sniper group that we talked about. So Sammy Wickham, Kitty Aloxa, and Lexi Held, obviously, those 3 in particular. The usage that they're starting to get to with those 3 players, moving them off of screens, having them set screens on ball, having them kind of flip matchups to make it advantageous for Satou, and eventually they'll be doing the same thing for Alyssa Thomas and Kalia Copper. Those 3 players are going to have a very important staking of claim to the usage for the team going forward. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like when the team is healthy, because I think as much as any other faction of the roster, they're going to play a significant role in kind of making the absolute most of the spacing that they're trying to operate out of. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that all comes about as the team gets healthy.
And to your earlier point, I feel like Nate Tibbetts is jumping for joy at the thought of getting his team back. And, he his two main players in Ka and Mack, like he hasn't gotten to see them on the court for him yet this season, and I bet that's just absolutely soul crushing for him.
I mean, that's certainly one thing in it for sure. You build the way that you want to play based off of all of the pieces that you have, and then when you don't have some of those ingredients that you're looking to cook with, the meal is not going to hit the way that you might necessarily want it to. So the fact that he has those pieces looming over the next handful of weeks to ultimately come back for them, I think he's excited at the just even the thought of it as they kind of ramp up their activity at practice and things like that. And ultimately, like I said before, I don't think anybody's going to be more happy to have a healthy team to kind of assess things from than Nate himself.
Now, the Mercury look ahead, and they are looking to face a healthier Dallas Wings team. Shout out DLLS Wings podcast. You should check it out. It's a new WNBA pod over on the DLLS Sports channel on YouTube. But yeah, they're going to be heading to the Valley here shortly. What do you think, other than getting healthy, because I feel like this whole podcast has been me crying wolf about my team being missing, having a lot of holes in it. What do you think the Mercury are going to do in this? They're going to have practice, I guess, first of all, for the first time in God knows how long. So what are you looking at to see as far as improvements from the Phoenix Mercury in the next 5 days?
Yeah, I think it all starts with the defensive end. So them doing a great job of being detailed with looking at their switching, where they've had lapses. They've leaned into it the last 3 games, or the last 2.5 games, I'd say, more than at any point prior to that kind of stretch of games where Alyssa has been out. And I think that's going to be something that they can kind of literally flip a switch to when they go to lineups where one of AT or Satou isn't on the court. And I think them adding layers to their defensive process is going to just make that a team that's been one of the best teams in the league on that end just that much more effective. You'll have activity when you have Satou and Alyssa on the court with players like Mack as well as Kat Westbeld. And then when one of those two front court pieces is off the court, then you can just double down on activity in a different way with switching that forces a team to play off script in different ways. And I think it all is just kind of be layers to a process that's going to be one of the most layered across the entire WNBA. They'll have multiple lineups that they've gathered information from to play to those types of styles of play. And I think it's all going to help uplift the offensive production as well.
Well, and before I get out of here, I want to give you one last chance to get anything out about tonight's game, because I feel like it was a tough game, but I wasn't really shocked about the outcome. So I feel like that's why I'm kind of been a little, for lack of a better term, speechless about it, because I just kind of expected it with how the flow of the game was going. You were there in the building for the Nate technical. I unfortunately missed it. I feel like I left and immediately he was like, you know what I'm going to do? Get a really hot head. And Erika's going to regret leaving. And I was so mad. You know, David, our writer, he messaged me about it. And I'm like, I missed the Nate technical.
Yeah, it was and I think you could see the kind of foundation of that moment leading up to when it actually happened before you left. There was multiple times where it just felt like a whistle was pending and it just never came. And a lot of times it led to one of the Mercury players that decided to drive to the basket ultimately get fouled, the foul not getting called. Said Mercury players on the floor while there's 4 to 5 other Seattle Storm players going back on the other end on offense. And they're getting opportunities to score in the advantage that is transition because a call did not take place in scenarios where it typically would have warranted a foul being called. So you see them being in single digits in the fourth quarter within a single digit deficit, and that single digit deficit ultimately growing to what the final score was. You can kind of see throughout the game in the fourth quarter where if they got a whistle in their favor here or they got a whistle in their favor there, for one, it allows for them to slow the game down because they're shooting free throws, gives them the opportunity to score with the clock stop, and it also allows for them to get their defense set. Those are 3 ingredients that help make the Mercury the team that they've ultimately been this season. And when that's not on the board, things can kind of look a little haywire and feel kind of uneven. And I feel like that's a lot of a reason why we saw the game look and feel the way that it did tonight. And honestly, because and it's a different way, but the way that things went in the fourth quarter of that first game against the Seattle Storm where we were talking about it in our podcast that followed it earlier in that week. When Alyssa is trying to go to the basket, and because people can't stay in front of her, they just elect to slide and flop, and they're getting rewarded with calls. So now the Mercury are obviously spending more time on defense. Alyssa's picking up fouls and turnovers, and it's kind of messing up the game flow. It was unique from that because Alyssa wasn't there tonight, but we saw a lot of those same kind of dynamics playing out in tonight's game.
Well, I hope that Wednesday game versus the Dallas Wings looks a little different. I'm trying to rub it in to the other people on the other show. You know what I mean? You got it kind of last year when you were still in Chicago with the Wings, and anytime the Mercury and the Wings played, I just like to rub it into somebody. I mean, it's an easy layup.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas definitely hasn't been playing the best basketball of late. Some of it obviously because of injury, but I don't think the Mercury will be taking anybody lightly. I think they're just looking to continue to be better with their process, and obviously before anything else, get as healthy as they possibly can.
Well, and I got to make sure I get Chris's other super chat in real quick before we get out of here, because he shouted out my slick back hairstyle is fire. And Stephen, I love you, little bro. Keep your head up, brother. We got to make sure we repeat happy birthday to my guy. Happy birthday to Stephen. So while we didn't get one dub today on, what day is it? June the 7th, June the 8th, let there be light. Stephen was born, and here we are.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Chris, I'm not your little bro, first of all. We appreciate the super chat. And there you go. I said your name. I hope you're happy now.
I'm not your little bro is crazy.
Not
Oh
at
my
all.
goodness.
I got a big brother. That's the only person I'm little bro to.
Well, I will make sure I keep my day job and don't try to take up any career in singing, as you just heard that I'm not trying to go triple platinum on happy birthday. But yeah, happy birthday to my guy. Shout out to
Appreciate it.
You for being born and being on this earth. So shout out to all of you for being in the chat. Melissa, Mina, Chris, Andrew, Desert Stop. He said it's the wrong pod, but that's okay. You popped in anyways. Who cares if it's the wrong pod? But yeah, shout out to all of you guys for being here. Be sure to leave a like, thumbs up, 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Become a diehard. Subscribe to PHNX Sports wherever you get your podcasts. And then while you're at it, you can follow us on Twitter together at PHNX_Mercury. You can follow me at Erika Lee Day, and that's Erika with a K. And you can follow Steven Pridgeon Garner at Steven PG3. Is that everything? Oh, and Kevin posts. Kevo posts, not Kevin posts. Kevin does not post. Kevo does post. So you can follow him at Twitter at Kevo posts. But I am going to give you guys a quick show schedule for the week. Monday, 5:30 p.m. Be there or be square. And then we resume regular scheduled programming on Friday at 11 a.m. So you guys know where to be this week. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And we will see you guys on Monday at 5:30. Thank you guys for tapping in with the postgame show. Mighty Mercury, even though they lost.
We all silly like the mayor.